Welcome. We spend so much time trying to be right, trying to nail down the absolute truth. But what if the real lessons, the big ones, come from being wrong? And I don't mean just a little bit wrong. I mean being spectacularly, brilliantly wrong. That's what we're digging into today. So let's start with this question because it's at the heart of everything. What if the stickiest, most dangerous ideas aren't just simple lies? What if they're these intricate, complex systems that are actually built on layers of truth? Things that feel so right, they're almost impossible to resist.
To really get our heads around this, we need an amazing metaphor that comes out of Turkish philosophy. It's this idea called the pastry of error. Yeah, you heard that right.
Okay, so picture a pastry, right? It's got all these flaky, delicious layers. Well, the pastry of error is just like that. It's not one single mistake. It's a whole system where one falsehood is layered on top of another, but, and this is the key, it's also got some real truths baked right in. And it's those layers of truth that make the whole thing taste right, feel coherent, and become so hard to pull apart. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. To build a system of error this complex, this internally consistent, well, you can't be a fool. You actually have to be smart. You have to be educated. This isn't about garden variety ignorance. We're talking about a highly constructed, well-defended fortress of wrongness.
So who was the master chef of this kind of error? Who baked the ultimate pastry? Well, for our main case study, we've got to look at one of the greatest minds in all of human history, Aristotle. He didn't just get a few things wrong. Oh no. He created probably the most magnificent, most influential pastry of error the world has ever seen.
And just look at the shelf life of this thing. We're talking about a system of thought that ran the show in the Western and Islamic worlds for nearly 2,000 years. Think about that. This wasn't just some dusty academic theory. It was the basic operating system for how entire civilizations saw reality. That's some powerful baking.
Looking back now, some of his mistakes seem, well, almost funny. Women have fewer teeth than men? I mean, you could just count them, right? But here's the thing you have to understand. These weren't just random goofs. Every single one of these errors was a logical, interconnected piece of his grand theory. If you questioned one little piece, you risked pulling a thread that could unravel the whole beautiful, coherent machine.
For example, take his theory of the elements. It's so elegant, and it seems to perfectly explain what we see every day. A rock is made of earth, so of course it wants to go back to the center of the universe. It falls. Fire wants to go up. It's simple, it's intuitive, and it's totally wrong. But man, did it fit perfectly inside his larger system.
And the sheer size of what he built is just mind-boggling. This number? That's roughly how many words from Aristotle's writings still exist today. 1 million words. He wasn't just jotting down a few ideas. He was building a complete, all-encompassing universe of knowledge from the ground up.
And that's the absolute crucial point. The reason whose ideas lasted so long wasn't because of any single fact. It was because the whole system worked. It was this incredible, coherent machine that had an answer for literally everything. And when you've got a machine that explains the whole world, it's really hard to admit that the engine itself might be broken.
Okay, so if building a beautiful, all-encompassing system is the problem, what in the world is the solution? Well, for that, we need to look at Aristotle's own philosophical ancestor, a guy who took the exact opposite path. I mean, this comparison really says it all, doesn't it? You've got Aristotle, who wrote 1 million words building this complete system to explain everything. And then you have Socrates, who famously wrote 0 words. Aristotle gave answers. Socrates just asked questions. His whole philosophy wasn't about building something, it was about realizing the limits of what he knew.
And here it is, maybe one of the most powerful sentences ever spoken. This isn't Socrates admitting defeat. No, this is a declaration of intellectual freedom. This is the starting line for any real, honest search for knowledge. So, here's the big takeaway. The most powerful weapon you can have against a complex, seductive, layered falsehood is the simple, humble power of admitting I don't know. It's like the perfect little tool that can pry open the layers of any pastry of error and let you see what's really inside.
Okay, this is all really fascinating ancient history, right? Aristotle, Socrates, great stuff. But what does any of this have to do with us, right here, right now, swimming in more information than Aristotle could have ever possibly imagined? Well, today we're living in what you might call an information Wild West. The old gatekeepers of what's true and what's not are mostly gone. And that means every single one of us can go out, gather our own ingredients, and bake our own little worldview.
And while that's super empowering, it also means it's easier than ever to accidentally create our own personalized, really convincing pastries of error.
So, how do we avoid the trap? This whole story gives us a pretty clear roadmap. First, we gotta embrace Socrates. Saying I don't know isn't a weakness, it's the beginning of wisdom. Second, don't just check the little facts. You have to challenge your own system. Ask yourself, what are the big, core assumptions my whole worldview is built on? And finally, let's focus on ideas, not idols. Aristotle wasn't a god or an idiot. He was a brilliant person with powerful ideas, some right, some wrong. Engage with the ideas themselves.
Which leaves us with a final, kind of unsettling question. Aristotle and all the brilliant people of his time were absolutely sure they had it all figured out, and their system was wrong for 2,000 years. So it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What elegant, coherent, and completely convincing pastry of error are we all enjoying right at this very moment without even having a clue?